Now, this is a myth. The one that is a myth is one that is before the present time, before the earth had its final form, before the animals really had settled into their identities and their dependable habits, and it was possible to change appearances, change your shape, really, and other things were possible too. Things were still very unsettled, and this is a story about a powerful old man who had a stone canoe. Well, he had to be a powerful man to keep the canoe afloat, I guess. And he had a couple of daughters, and he lived in a large cave, sort of a large house in a rock. And also, on the other side of the lake were two brothers, one fairly young still, and they were there without their parents because the father and mother had gone off in their canoe hunting and hadn't returned. And after a period of several days, the brothers became convinced that maybe something had happened to their parents and they weren't going to return. And this made the younger brother very unhappy. He was grieving the loss of his parents, and he cried. And his older brother said, "Now, remember, your mother told us that if you cry, maybe the wolves will hear you and they will come." But that didn't slow down the younger brother. He was really deeply grieving. And the crying continued, and nothing the older brother seemed to be able to do was helping. And he tried making toys that the younger brother could use. And finally, he made a ball, and he placed in that ball some wing feathers of a bird. And so when the ball was thrown up in the air, it would make a sound because of the feathers. It would go, "Woo!" Well, this delighted the younger brother. It distracted him from his grief, and so he was happy again. Well, that sound, for some reason, carried all the way across the lake, and this old man heard this sound. What in the world is that? He was thinking. Ooh, I've never heard that sound before. And so he went out and he ordered the stone canoe, which folded up when he came to shore. It folded up like the door of his cave. Ordered it down and got in and told it to head towards the sound there. Now, this canoe didn't require a paddle. It didn't go fast, but it didn't require a paddle. He could just tell the canoe, go, stop, turn, whatever he wanted, and the canoe would do it. So it took him some time, but he crossed the lake, and here was this young fellow throwing his ball up in the air. Woo! And the old man was fascinated by this. He said, "I wish the next time he threw that ball into the air that it would come down in my canoe." Well, the old man's power was enough so that he could do that. He could pretty well ask for whatever he wanted. Now, you should know that the old man wasn't living alone. He had a couple of daughters that he left behind. And we'll hear more about them in a few minutes. The ball came down in his canoe. He picked it up, and the younger brother said, "Well, give me back my ball." And the old man said, "Come and get it." The younger brother was scared because this man was kind of strange, and he had made the ball go out of its way, and so he was afraid to get in, and so he started crying, and he ran back and he told his older brother what had happened. The older brother, "Oh, check on this." He went out, and there was the old man with the ball and the stone canoe, and so the older brother said, "I made that ball for my brother so that he could stop crying because our parents are dead, and he's very unhappy, and so please give the ball back. Come and get it, said the old man. Well, the older brother wasn't as scared as the younger brother, and so he stepped into the canoe. Immediately, the canoe pulled away from shore, and it was very deep water there. It wasn't a sandy beach or anything. So the older brother really couldn't risk jumping out of the canoe. He might drown. And so he again explained to the old man, but the old man didn't really care about anything except himself. And so he thought he would just take this older brother and have him to amuse himself and perhaps to amuse his daughters. And so they went back across the lake to the old man's cave and stepped inside, and he ordered the canoe to tip up on its front, and it acted as the door of the cave again. They went in, and it wasn't an enclosed cave, it was a cave entrance to the grounds where they lived. And so here the older brother is going with the old man, and he sees the two young women there, and he starts to weep himself. And the young women say, "Well, why are you weeping?" Well, he said, I've been taken away from my younger brother. My younger brother is grieving the loss of our parents. He's crying all the time. I made him this ball that pleases him, and he stopped crying, and now your father has taken the ball, and he's taken me too. How is my younger brother going to manage? He doesn't hunt yet. And so, difficult situation. And the young women said, sometimes my father will bring a young man here, and then after he's been here a little while, when we like him, he'll kill him. So you should be mindful that you may be killed in a little while if you're still here. So the young man wondered what he could do. And he thought, maybe what I'll do is I'll make some things for this man. Now, you should know that when a young man is going to get married, he normally would go to the family of the girl and be helpful. Maybe he would make things. At any rate, he told the old man he would make him a bow and arrow out of bone. But he would need to get some bone. And the old man said, well, I don't have any bone here. And I know where we can get some. So tomorrow we'll get in the canoe and we'll go get you some bone. So the next day he got in, and the young man knew that he was at risk now. The old man didn't know that the young man was aware. And they came to a place where in order to pass to where the wood was, you had to go in a kind of outlet of a river. And this outlet was guarded by two giant caribou. And these two giant caribou each had a small bird on his antlers. And if somebody tried to get past them, the birds would sing and the caribou would thrash about with their horns and kill whatever it was. So the young man told the birds, don't sing yet. He said, I'm going to put my jacket in the water and make it stand up like a person, and then you can sing then, and the caribou can think that my jacket is me. So that's what he did. And the caribou started to thrash around, but the boy swam around behind him and got out, and he got his wood. And had taken a spear with him, and he killed both of the caribou and got their antlers bone. And so he went back, and on the way back, the old man was pretty impressed that the young man had succeeded in doing all of this. Said, you might need some glue for what you're making, and I don't have any. We make it from the sturgeon arabisac, and I don't have any, but I know there's big sturgeon right in here. So why don't you stand up on the thwart, on the smallest thwart of the canoe in the front there with a spear, and spear a sturgeon. So the young man did. And as he saw a sturgeon, he threw the spear at the sturgeon, and the old man simultaneously tipped the canoe. The boy fell into the water. Well, the boy didn't have many powers, but his father had told him, if ever you need to, you can act like an otter. And so what the boy did was to swim like an otter and wrap his arms around the sturgeon, and they headed off for home, where the old man was just looking around in the water to see where he was and where the sturgeon was and where his spear was. And finally the spear came to the surface, and he took a pole and got the spear back, and he headed back home. Well, by the time he got there, the young man had come in, shown the sturgeon to the two young women, and asked them to cook some, and that when their father came home, they should each take a piece of cooked sturgeon and to go down and greet him. So the old man came in, ordered his canoe up, and he saw his daughters there. He saw they had something. What have they got there? Oh, we have some good sturgeon. Well, where'd you get that? Oh, the young man gave it to us. The old man was quite surprised that the young man had made it back at all, much less before he got there. And so he went to the Michwap where they stayed and went in, and here was the young man staring at him. The old man tried not to show surprise or fear. He had some sturgeon and started to plan how he could get rid of this guy. Well, the young man made a bow and arrow out of bone, and he was able to do everything except to fletch the arrows. He needed some feathers. The only feathers, of course, were in that ball, and he wasn't about to take those feathers. So he asked the old man about feathers. Well, no, but I know where you can get some nice eagle feathers. There's a mountain out here. It's an island in the water, and there's a high mountain, and there's an eagle's nest on top. We'll go out there tomorrow. So the next day out they went, and so they got there, and the young man stepped out of the canoe, and the old man backed off and left him there. And the boy said, "Hey, where are you going?" "Well, too bad for you. I guess the eagle's going to eat you now." So the young man climbed the mountain. When he got to the top, there was this huge eagle and a couple of young eagles, her children. And so she said, "Yeah, how did you wind up here?" And so he told the story. And the eagle was very sympathetic. He wasn't very impressed with what the old man had done. So he said, "Okay, take all the wing feathers you want, and then we're going to try to get you back home." And so the eagle mother took a hold of him and took off and flew around a little bit, realized he could fly with him, but too old for this, there's just one of me, so I'm going to ask my two sons to take you. So they did, one under each arm, and they flew back and put the boy down. And the old man hadn't made it home yet. So he took his eagle feathers inside and he fletched the arrows, and the old man came in, and again, here's the young fellow. Again, the old man doesn't show any emotion or surprise or fear or anything, but he realizes he's up against something. So he admires the bow and arrows. His daughters had been out playing with the bow and arrow, and it worked very well indeed. So then the boy said, "I'm going to make you a new canoe." The old man thought, well, this kid still hadn't figured out what's going on here, I guess. So instead, he's trying to do something nice for me so he can stay with my daughters. So the boy took the wood that he had got on that first trip, and some horn, and some glue, and he put together a canoe and a paddle, and in the canoe, at the bow, he placed a wing feather on either side up near the smallest thwart decoration. And so when it was finished, he gave it to the old man. The old man was delighted. Looked faster to him. Was faster. So he got in, and his daughter said, "Oh, paddle around with it." So he did. Wow. Yeah. Said, "This is a lot better than my old stone canoe." He sort of gave the old stone canoe a kick and treated it poorly, shabbily, disrespectfully, and took the new canoe out a little further. The girl said, "Yeah, go out a little further." And so he did, and then he really dug in the paddle, and the canoe started to rise a little bit and then down. That was exciting. So he paddled hard again, and he noticed that when he paddled really hard, the paddle made a sound. Woo! But he was so excited that he paddled harder, and the canoe took off and went higher and higher. And he couldn't turn it. There was no water to steer it. "My daughters, I can't see you, I can't hear you." The young man said, "Don't call out to him." So he continued up, and a fog came in and covered him over, and the eagles came, and they took him away, and he was drowned. Well, the young man said, "Now I'm going to make another canoe, and we have to go see if my younger brother is still alive, because he's probably dead after all this time, nobody to hunt for him." So he did, and the three of them went off in this new canoe. And when they got near the shore, he saw something moving fast. And here was the top half of his younger brother, but his bottom half was a wolf. And he said, "What's happened to you?" "Well," the younger brother said, "I was crying for so long that the wolves came, and now I've become almost a wolf." And the older brother said, "Well, let's go back the way it was." No, the younger brother said, "It's too unhappy being a human. I'm going to be a wolf." And with that, he jumped up in the air and was transformed entirely into a wolf. And the older brother said, "Well, if you're going to be a wolf, don't hunt humans. Eat like humans do. And they will be good to you, and you can be good to them." "I'll remember what you told me," the younger brother said. And he ran off. And I see the tails of the ptarmigan. That's the end of the story.